there's a special kind of magic when there's curiosity paired with uncomfortableness, Like, I don't know if uncomfortableness is a word, but you know what I mean,
How does it like represent in your day-to-day? Is it more like something that comes up again and again and again, or is it almost more like you're kind of plugged into and it's constantly a feeling or a sense? What's your experience?
It's not a plugged in and at all times I feel God really strongly and presently in my heart like I have done many times since. No. I think the one constant is that because of the experience that I've gone through and because of the way that I am going through my days, there's definitely a knowing, an intellectual knowing that there's a connection. But the way that I experience God specifically is actually tricky business. Like it's not fully a science. It's partially a science, partially an art. My current experiments with prayer and experience with God is that the way to feel it, the way to be connected to it, the way to feel, to hear that voice really clearly is a combination of a number of steps. Step one is to do certain practices that create more and more stillness and calmness within my mind and my body. So if I practice yoga, if I meditate, if I do mantras, if I do breathing techniques, if I do something really crucial, like a really crucial component to all of this, let's call it boredom time. Like when I do time of nothingness, which is not as simple as you might think. Like it needs to be, can't be meditation, it can't be focusing on breathing, it can't be relaxing. I try to make it as close to an experience of that I had as a child, where I either lay on the ground or I am in bed and look at the ceiling. And I can't look out the window, right? Because like I have like these huge windows and this beautiful view and there's too much going on. It's too stimulating. Like I could sit here and watch outside and be seeing things that are interesting for hours. It has to be confined in some way. Like I look at my bed sheets, for half an hour, or I'm like looking at the carpet, or like it just needs to be all my own clothes. Like it needs to be very more internal, or it's something that's not that is not changing. It is not a trying to quiet the mind necessarily. It is not a focusing on anything. It's just basically sitting and letting time pass. And sometimes thoughts come. Sometimes I do get childish inclinations of, I don't know, all of a sudden I start touching my pants. I go, they feel interesting. Like, or I look at the carpet and I imagine it being the desert of Dune, for even if it's just for a minute or two, it's just kind of like fantasizing things. But I basically do very little or nothing, right?
How is it different from kind of like a normal daydreaming where, you can get into that state when, whatever, you look at a wall and the patterns and then...
Oh, it's not different at all yet.
Okay.
What I'm saying is this is step one.
Yeah.
I don't do these things and I hear the voice. It's not as direct for me. I do these practices during the day because they typically help me get a little bit more still and quiet in my mind. And then prayer to me seems to be a sort of a state of a certain openness with no expectation. And it's like a loving patience of saying, I am open to hearing, but I'm not listening for something. I am open for seeing, but I'm not looking for something. I am going to relax into becoming, this is actually kind of a poetic way. It's not as poetic in reality, but it's like sort of trying to relax to a point where you can become an instrument of God, like where an impulse comes or something comes that seems distinctly to come from a different place. And it does not always work because it is very hard not to look for it. It's very hard not to be listening for it. That is the hardest thing about this. And I have on and off days now, or on and off moments. Sometimes I can sense that I've accumulating a certain tension because I'm like, I haven't felt as connected today. And that's the beginning of the end. Like there's no way I can, like out of that place, I can't get there. And I have to just find a way to be okay with that and relax into it is whatever it is. It's also like the story, there's this story of some monk who, I'm now full of stories about spiritual stuff.
Wonderful.
Isn't it funny? Well, it is my art form.
Yep.
So the moment this interests me, all of a sudden, this is the way I play. But there was this monk, and God visited him in his dreams, wanted to start a relationship with this monk. And the monk was very critical and was like, how can I trust that you're truly God? Why are you in a dream? If you came to me when I'm awake, I would know for certain. But you coming to me in my dream, I don't know if it's you or the devil or what it is, my imagination. I can't totally trust you. And so God said, well, you want me to come when you are awake? And he says, yes. It's like, okay, well, I'll do that, but I have one condition for you. I will come, but until I come, as long as people ask you for your food, you have to share it. You have to give it to them. Because he knew this monk would only eat one time a day, would prepare a very special way of preparing his meal, and was very difficult about eating alone in his room because he didn't want anybody to see him eat. So he said, you have to eat outside, and if anybody asks you for food, you have to share. So predictably, the monk says, no problem, we'll do it. First day, obviously, a beggar asks. He has to share. The second day, another monk asks. Every fucking day, somebody's asking now, right? He has 1 day of no food, 2, 3, 4. He's gone now a whole week without food, but he's still on it. He knows this is the deal with God. I'm not going to share my food with anybody. And then there's one day where he really wants to eat now. And so he thinks about ways to make sure that nobody can interrupt him and get the food, and waits for a perfect hour and moment where nobody's around. It's very dark, and he prepares it very hurriedly, and he's really quickly on his way to his room, and a dog appears. And as the dog appears and kind of jumps towards the food, he kicks the dog really hard, right? And goes into his room and eats. And that night he goes to sleep and God appears. And predictably, the guy is like, well, why the fuck are you appearing in my dream? Didn't you tell me that you would appear in person? He's like, I did. And you kicked me when I was trying to say hello, right? So in that vein, what I'm coming to learn and experience more and more is that it can come, like God's voice can come in a million ways. Its voice not isn't he the male of God, but the source, the whatever. It can come in so many different forms. So when you're looking for it, you're missing it. When you're not looking, you're missing it. You have to find a certain balance of being open for it to receive it when it happens. And I've received it through other people, like through the words, sometimes a text or something. And it was just in the moment, the way it resonated within me, I could feel and sense, oh, this is coming from somewhere else. Sometimes it's within me, just an intuition, a feeling or a clarity. I need to do this. And I know, oh, this is God. It's very hard to say. I think the day when I was on the silent retreat and was out and about and was walking and the wind was blowing, and I thought to myself, listen to the wind today. And then the wind kind of inspired me to start chanting and I started feeling that it relaxes my tense face. And I was like, to me, that is the kind of moment in hindsight where I'm like, God is talking to me through nature. But it doesn't mean that anytime there's wind, it's God. Right? It's not that. It's not anytime I'll go on that path of walking in the forest. I can't make an appointment. I can't grasp it in a specific form and go be like, this is it. And honestly, I think I only had one experience where the experience itself was so overwhelmingly outstanding that it was not like anything I've ever experienced before, which was, the day I was walking around and feeling this incredible love from everywhere. That did not feel like many moments of my life. That felt like being on LSD, but it was much better and much more intense and different. But it was adjacent to that. But I've never had an experience like that. That was such an intense day. And I'm both grateful and bummed that I know that I shut it off, right? And I don't know, I'm sure I'm going to shut it on again, but I shut it off. I can't ration this and go, I want to have 10 minutes of this right now, right? I just have not been able to do that. All other experiences that I had, in and of themselves, they're not distinguishable from many moments that I had before of a similar quality. Moments where I looked at the ocean and boom, I had an intuition and I was like, this is what I'm going to do about this problem. Or, I don't know, somebody tell me something and I see clearly this is the way or this is the answer or whatever it is. I've had many of these moments of intuition, of synchronicity, of seeing a sign, or many, many before. And in that sense, what I'm experiencing now is exactly the same, not different at all. The only difference is that it's almost as if I've had this friend my whole life, and this friend would write me little notes, do these nice things for me, but I would attribute these messages to all kinds of different friends and all kinds of different people and randomness. Then all of a sudden I realized all along it was this one person that was the source for all of this. And now when I get these little messages, I know where it's coming from. And so it has a different quality, also feels less. I always knew it's not me. We've talked many times about, at the end of the day, when I'm the most creative, creativity happens through you. When I play music and a melody appears, it just happened through. I'm the instrument of that thing. I just never was comfortable using the word God. I'm still am not comfortable using it. I'm just using it because I haven't found a better word or a better way of expressing this. Saying the universe all the time, it lacks the intimacy that I feel. Although it has all of the lack of stigma that I liked about it. That's why I always use the universe. I had a conversation a year ago with Sofian about this, where we had dinner and he told me, do you believe in God? And I said, listen, I believe in an energy and a universe, and I don't believe in a man with a big beard and a hell and heaven. And I don't believe. And he's like, That's all bullshit. So you believe in God. You just don't like saying God because God is connected to religion and has a lot of stigma. I say it because it's the simplest way for me to express it. I don't care about the stigma and the problems people have with it. And so I remembered that conversation. Now I use it and make you uncomfortable, but the only reason I use it is because it expresses the intimacy I feel better than saying source talk or universe. I don't know why. I have difficulties, not with myself. I'm totally cool. Like when I think, thank you, God, or when I think like, oh, this was God, I'm okay. I have no discomfort anymore. But when I talk to somebody else, I'm like, I wish I had a better way of saying this, but this is the way I'm going to say it now. But there's a threading that I see that I didn't see before. And in many ways, and this is something that technically I'm sure we could accomplish this without saying God, right? Without thinking God. But I realized that God will speak to me, and it will speak clearly and often. It will only speak in the now, and will only speak about what I am ready to hear now. So one change, for instance, one interesting thing that I've played with and experimented with is that whenever I now accumulate questions that I don't know the answer to, I'm like, I should figure out what I'm going to do in this conversation on Wednesday. I need to find a game plan on how to respond to this challenge. And these things always pop up in my life, right? I always have like a running list of little or mid-range challenges or questions. Should I do this or that? Things that I'm not quite sure about. I now am just practicing the framework. Well, I will know when the time has come. I won't think about it at all. And today, for instance, I had one of these calls scheduled and the time was now, and I had heard no voice. I had no clarity. I didn't know exactly what to say. And then I remembered, because I now am full of these stories, that I remember one thing. It's not even a story, but I remember a joke the guru at the retreat center made about the Buddha. And then he was saying, what would the Buddha do in this situation? It's like nothing, because the Buddha doesn't resist. And then they tell him this and this. And he does it because the Buddha, and he said like 2 or 3 times, he then goes a lot. In the telling of the story, he said, because the Buddha doesn't resist a couple of times. And somehow that stayed with me. And today, at some point, I thought, well, it's kind of inconvenient that the call is coming up in 2 hours. I've not known what to do about this. And then I thought that the Buddha doesn't resist popped up. I remembered that saying or that phrase. And then I thought, well, because for a microsecond, I thought, well, if I haven't gotten the answer yet, maybe I should reschedule. That was what I was really thinking. I'm like, well, it's, about to be time. I don't know what, so reschedule. And then I remembered, but the Buddha doesn't resist. And then I thought, well, maybe I should play with non-resistance today. And maybe, the call is on the calendar. Resisting means taking the call. And I don't know what to do. Maybe I should just be non-resistant and see what happens on its own. Like I'll just get on the call and see what appears. And it was totally fine. Like I had a good call, and what needed to happen, it unveiled itself, unfortunately, not in some like super funny or bombastic way that I could tell now in a cool story, but it just was fine. There was no problem in me not knowing what I should do about the big challenge of the conversation. It was neither the person that told me, neither I had an aha moment. We just kept talking. He kept talking. And then eventually at the end, we kind of knew, all right, we'll do this and this next. And then when it ended, I was feeling, yeah, this was probably the right next step. That's fine. So what's a very interesting experience is this state of non-worrying, or this any time a worry pops up and I go, what should I do about blah? I go, well, I'll know when the time has come. I can't ask God to answer something about the future right now just because I want to address it right now. I just have to relax enough to hear the answer when it's right. And I've been surprised. Sometimes I hear answers about problems I wasn't asking about sometimes. But then when I hear the answer, I'm like, oh, this is fucking awesome. This is great. Yeah, I'll do this. And sometimes I'm surprised that this is something I thought I would deal with much later and it pops up now. And sometimes I'm surprised, like today, where I'm like, well, there was a week I was waiting for an answer and no answer came. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the way to nourish the relationship, which is what I'm trying to do, basically, is I'm trying to figure out a way to nourish this relationship and see if I can sustain and grow it. The way I attempt to do it is by going through some practices during my day so that my mind and body are not overly tense and overly busy. Because when my self is so noisy, it's not impossible to still get a message or hear something, but it's just much harder. And so I try to create some level of like stillness and quiet. And then I try this awkward balance of non-waiting, waiting, right? Where I'm sort of trying to be as open as possible with zero expectation. And that's tricky. Like I don't have the formula for that at all. Sometimes I accomplish it, but it's in the last 2 weeks, it's been more by mistake and stumble than by actual mastery of the state. I don't have the mastery of that state at all. And then I've had days where I'm telling you, when I heard the words, "You are so loved," and then everywhere I was walking, everything was loving me, that was a very powerful experience. That was a very intense experience. That was you can put this in a movie about my life experience. And I could paint a picture and it would be a bombastic scene. And then it followed by days where I just could not get into that state because I could not shut off my expectation, my looking for it. And I was telling myself to not, but I just couldn't. I just wasn't able to get there. But to me right now, those are the two things I'm trying to practice daily. Practicing stillness in quieting my mind and my body and my being, and then being open and receptive, and then existing, just day by day, moment by moment, going along. These are the things that I think about, that I consciously think about. What I'll say is that my level of worry and stress has gone down dramatically. For about a week, it was zero. Like it was not a worry in the world, which is just an unbelievable experience. And now I would say it's very, very rare and very, very little. I've had, maybe in the last week, for sure had like 3 or 4 moments. So maybe like one every other day, maybe a bit more than that, a moment where some worry will pop up, some thought, something, or somebody will bring a worry to me in a way that I first will sort of respond to with, But within usually a very short period of time, I remember. And once I remember, I'm able to let go and trust and just be like, this is going to sort itself out. I just need to wait and know what needs to be done. Now, the funky thing about all this is that you really don't know. And it's not the sort of thing where, as I said, you can't just, I'm sure some people just wait all day in a cave to hear, right? Or maybe they just are plugged in all day and they don't wait, they just feel all day. But for me, and this has been challenging at times, especially after that one day where the experience was so overwhelmingly intense, was that I was waiting for that every day or so, or maybe it'll happen. And then when it wasn't, I was sort of like, okay, that's fine, but what do I do now? Like, what exactly is my job here? Like, do I just wait? Do I go and clean my kitchen? Like, what exactly do you, like, what should I be doing? And then I remembered, that old story of what do you do after enlightenment? And it's, the man was carrying stones and sticks all day and then he got enlightened. enlightened, and then he was carrying stones and sticks all day. It's like, not to say, I'm not even sure I have englowment, right? But now that I am entering and have entered this relationship with God, you can't just wait around all day and wait for God to tell you everything. You have to do the work that's in front of you, but you also have to practice and do a certain type of work and get into a certain type of state so that you can see, so you can hear if something pops up, if there's something that appears. Now, I'll say this. So worries have gone down dramatically. Even when I don't hear God's voice, my worries are very low because I feel so connected. That gives a great amount of safety. I was thinking about this. In psychology, they talk about attachment trauma, right? When we're children, we have intense attachment to our parents. And that attachment, it is physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's biological, and it's real. Because if a parent detaches from us, that is death, right? If a mother leaves us, that is certain death. We're not going to survive. We're not capable of surviving to ourselves. So a lot of times when we as children don't feel as attached to our parent, we're detached to our parent, that causes a certain type of trauma that we will carry with us, psychologically speaking. When I got into my moment of recognizing God and I realized how all the worries in the world disappeared, how there was a certain warmth and comfort in my life that was never there at this degree, I thought, I wonder if this is what happens when you live a life detached from that connectedness feel. Like I felt a lot of beauty in my life and a lot of great things, but I didn't feel that connection. And lacking that connection, no money in the world, no success in the world, no intelligence, no network, no people. I have lived such a rich, powerful, empowered life. And there was still always a great deal of uncertainty, unsureness, insecurity, like a nervousness there underneath it all that is gone now because it's almost like I'm now in the arms of my strong, big father. I'm like, all right, I'm just a kid and I'm in really good hands. It has taken a metric ton of responsibility off my shoulders. I still know I'm responsible for my life and the things I do, but I don't feel alone in that responsibility in a way that I've always felt. I've always felt alone in that responsibility of how I live my life. So that's been really, really beautiful. I can't describe it any other way. And with it have come some side effects. Right? One side effect is that I wake up in the morning and I'm in an amazing mood. And maybe I thought, I don't know what I thought, but if somebody would have told me about what I'm just experiencing a year ago, I think I would have suspected that I would never feel tired anymore, no discomfort, or, like physically, I would also feel as clean as what I described. That's actually not the case. You know that I've had a cold, I've had allergies attack, and I've woken up at times feeling physically bad, but I've been surprised how that has no impact or very little impact on my mood. Every morning I wake up and the sun is literally shining out of my ass. Now, some mornings I feel really great. Some mornings I feel so-so. Some mornings my body feels shitty, but my spirit is so fucking high. It's so like, let's go. It's so happy and so excited about life. I haven't had 2 weeks of this level of excitement in the morning ever. And there's no, you know everything about me. It's not that anything is upcoming that's more exciting than 2 weeks prior. Nothing changed, but everything has changed in my mood. Everything. I have a lot more moments of awe as well. This is not something I am trying to get to or I want to practice or I want to work on. It happens, every day there's multiple moments of complete awe about something in ways I've never experienced before, only under strong psychedelic influence. And maybe once in a while, every couple of months, maybe there'd be a moment, but not at this level. Like, last night, I had a million dreams. I could not hold them all in the morning. I lost most of them, but I know I was dreaming so much, dude. And in between two dreams, I had maybe a minute or two that I was awake. I was just lying there, not thinking anything consciously at least. And then I felt my hand, and then I was thinking, hands. Oh my fucking God, hands. What an incredible thing. Think about it. If hands didn't exist, what kind of a magical tool is this? Think about everything. And for a second, I had 100 images of what I do with my hands. From simple things of like grabbing a glass and drinking, to typing in a poem on my laptop, to writing a message to my mother that I love her, to touching my child and comforting it when he cries. A million little pictures. For a couple of minutes, I was just in absolute awe with hands. I don't know where it came from, but I was just like, wow, hands. And I remember my last thought was, I need to think more about hands tomorrow. And then I fell asleep again, And then at some point in the middle of today, I was thinking, hands. I thought about hands last night. Like, my hands are beautiful. They're actually really amazing. My hands have been great friends my whole life. Like, they've been very healthy, very strong. I have big hands. I have hands a lot of people have told me are beautiful. I like my hands. And I've done a million things with my hands. I play instruments with my hands. I do martial arts with them. I do yoga with them. All my work is mostly either my voice or my hands typing something. I'm like, I've made millions with these hands. I've loved people. I've hugged. I touched. And that's it. And I have a lot of these examples of things similar to a Zorba the Greek. I loved reading Zorba the Greek because he was like, oh my God, birds, what is this? I'm a little bit like that these days. I'm looking at things and I can't believe that they exist. I cannot believe that these things actually exist. Like the other day, I was coming up on the elevator. I'm on the 36th floor. Again, this is one of those moments where I just sit there and I don't try to be particularly spiritual or anything. I'm just standing there. And then I look at the numbers and it goes 3, 4, 5, and I look at the numbers and go, wow, cool. Numbers. They're kind of interesting shapes. And then all of a sudden, every number that was going on, I was like, ooh, an 11. A 12. A 13. I was like having feelings towards these numbers as if every number is like a character. It's a different little NFT monkey with a different set of sunglasses and hat on or something. I'm like, 19. Ooh, 20. It's kind of cool. And then I was just like looking at these numbers. And at the end, it's 36. I'm like, 36, 3, 6. That is funny. 3 and 6. The reason why I thought that was funny is because when I was a child, I think at 10, somebody once asked me what my favorite color was. And I said blue. And I used to say blue as a kid just because I didn't know what other color. It's a color that you would think you should say is your favorite color. And then somebody asked me, what's your favorite number? And I thought about it and I said 3. And ever since then, 3 is the one number I feel a personal relationship to. Now, that could be explained because we're 3 brothers. I'm sure there's many ways to explain why, but 3 has a special meaning to me. I've never thought about the number. It was, when you decide something as a child and then it's just so. It was all my life just so. I never thought much about it. When I do passwords and I have to type numbers, it's going to be a 3, 6, and a 9. Yeah, or some combination of that, a 9, 6, and a 3, or 3 3s. It's always been that. But I never thought they're magical. I still don't. Or I never attributed anything to it other than, I guess, 3. If somebody asked me, what's your favorite number? I'd say, I guess 3. I don't know why. I just said it once as a child. When I walked out on the 36th floor, which is where the apartment is that I'm staying at, I thought, 3, 6, isn't that funny? That's kind of nice. And then I walked in and that was that. And then an hour later, I do a story for my kids. And eventually, as I was telling that story, the kid in that story is in a museum and looked at an Egyptian old thing and it has certain numbers on it. And then I give a whole speech of the magic of numbers, how numbers are the one universal human language. There's no other language all humans on this planet talk but numbers. That's a language you can write to explain problems or give solutions or grasp something that happens in the world, and you could send it to any human in the world. We all speak numbers, right? Like, isn't that a beautiful... And I gave a whole thing about the beauty of numbers to my children in that story, and then I continued on. I didn't had any of these thoughts before. They just kind of poured out of me, and then I thought, yeah, dude, I've never thought the numbers are cool, but they're kind of cool. This is just another example. I have many examples like this. This is something that is happening to me as a side effect. I'm not setting an intention for it. I'm not practicing it, but it's sort of, I can't help it. It just all the time, I am in awe with life. I mean, the first couple of days, I was looking around. I was like, how is all of this possible? Like, how is life even possible? Look at all of this. I was really, truly amazed. I'm in awe a lot. And I'm in worry very, very little. I feel a calmness and a peace that is not from this world, and that feels so good. Oh my God. I wish this to everybody. I wish this to everybody. This is so nice. It's so, so nice. But when it comes to hearing God's voice, it's more of a communication. It's not like a, hello, Stelly. This is, whatever. I can't make a good God voice, but it's not sort of a distinct voice. It's a way of communicating that I receive. It has a quality to it that I now recognize, that I now can tell. It's like it has a yellow marking on it. And then I go, oh, this is from Ramin. This is from this friend. But that, I don't know. I'm still figuring that out, but it's a tricky thing. It seems to me that the stillness plus open readiness is the formula, but I don't know how to do this reliably right now. I don't.
You said earlier in passing, like you notice a threading. Did you mean by that? Do you remember?
Yeah, what I just mean is that what I just referred to as it is not random things anymore, Like a couple of years ago, I learned about the first time I encountered a concept around this was the subconscious mind. And when I learned about the subconscious mind, I thought, all I have to do is trust this way more powerful computer that's my subconscious mind. That's going to deal it for me. And many times in life, I was able to be very trusting of, the subconscious, and it would help me in many ways to get answers or to figure things out with less effort. Later, I heard many other concepts for this. And I've used them, even the universe, like saying, the universe is going to show you a sign, or don't fight reality, or life will unfold. Like I've said and felt and heard many of these concepts in all different words before, but I never had the level of trust and the sense of deep connection to this source to rely on it as much as I do now. And because I rely on it and relax into it as much as I do now, it has been running my life for the last 2 weeks. I've never had that type of thinking run this much of my life for this long of a time. It was moments here and there scattered over a year. And since I rely on it so much, and since I trust in it so much, I see these things. They don't seem, number one, they don't seem generated by me anymore. I know that I will have the thought. My eyes will see it. I know that I'm still an important part of receiving this, but I know it's not being born within me. And I've known this before, but never as crystal clear. I've known it intellectually, but I've never known it in my bones as much as I do now. And I see the threading is more of what I just mentioned, the highlighting. Like, let's say you're my friend, but I can never see you, but you will send me different messages. And we have a secret sign. Every time you send me a message, you make a red dot on it, right? So it doesn't matter if somebody offers me a glass of water and has a red dot, or a piece of paper with a message with a red dot, or texts me and has a red dot. I know it's from you. That is the threading that makes all this one thing, versus before, maybe sometimes I thought, oh my God, I'm so brilliant. I had this idea. And maybe another time I thought, look at this. Life just fixed this problem for me. Many times I did not notice it and didn't see it at all. So there was no common thread to these experiences. They seemed disconnected, and I had very little awareness. I knew about them intellectually and I felt them often, but I was not as aware of them. And I didn't see that it was all coming from the exact same place.
How do you pray?
You mean after yoga when I pray?
Yeah.
So I'll say that right now I'm thinking that the real prayer is not when I pray. The real prayer is the state of no expectation, openness, and trust. That is the real prayer. That's when I really invite God into my life, like God to communicate to me. That's when I truly am connecting to him in some way. But that does not have words or structure or form, so it's very hard to grasp, as I said. The one thing that I do, so I used to, before I actually had my transformative experience of recognizing God within me, when I started experimenting with prayer, first, I did it before eating, right? Where I started praying a little bit before eating. And that was totally like how I saw it in movies. Like I would just do the faulting hands and I would try to usually focus on being grateful for receiving this food, thinking about all that had to happen for this food to be here and nourish me, the people that had to work on the food, the people that delivered it, that there's an elevator that I could take to get the food, that there's a fork and a knife that were produced in some factory that people worked at. That's everything in humanity that had to happen for me to get this nourishment and be grateful for it. That's usually what I would do in some way or another. Sometimes I would think about my children, just be great that they have food, that I have food, that all the people I love are not going to be hungry today. Like some sort of that, right? Usually just like a minute or so, maybe 30 seconds. And then I would just eat. Then when I started doing my daily yoga practice, and at some point at the end of yoga, nobody had said at the end of yoga, do prayer. I had not thought of it. The actual instruction was, after the hour of yoga, you can just sit there and then meditate for how long you want. A minute, 10 minutes, you just sit there in silence. I think the very first time I did the yoga practice on my own, as I sat there, I felt like I should get on my knees and pray now. Like that could maybe be good. I don't know. And then I just did it. I just basically went, because it's a yoga mat, I went on my knees and I bowed down, basically do a deep bow. Maybe looks more like prayer that a Muslim would do in a mosque, where it's like kind of down with the head on the ground. And I don't know, I would do all kinds of things, honestly. Sometimes I would have words of gratitude for life, for breathing, at times I was like, thank you that yoga exists and I have it. It was a lot of like gratefulness stuff going on. I would just basically say thank yous of sorts. Since I heard the story where one of the main punchlines was prayer is loving God, is being in love with God, that hit me really hard. This is also, funny enough, that day was the day where I had my moment with God later, like very unexpectedly. But that made me go, ooh, how do you even fall in love with God? How could you love God? And how could I try this in prayer, right? Because in my mind, I'm experimenting with this now. I'm like, this sounds better than what I'm doing, but I don't know exactly how to do it. This is intriguing to me. And just the other day, what I did for the first time, and this is what I'm practicing now, is that when at the end of yoga, I went into my kind of prayer pose, instead of speaking and going, oh God, you're really awesome and thank you for all the great things, I tried to focus on my heart and to feel love. And as I started feeling love, a person popped up, a distinct person that I was able to immediately intensify the love in my heart, like fill my heart with love. And to me, it felt like, loving, when it comes from the right place, love is also kind of a term, like many other terms. I can have desire, I can have wanting, pleasure, ego, many, many things I could say love to, but they're not real love. But when I love something or somebody from the depths of my soul, it is loving God too, right? It's like loving you is loving God. There's no difference or distinction. You are just another expression of God in this universe, in an intimate experience and expression of God to me. So I don't have to imagine some magical being and loving that. I have to just fill myself with love and feel the connection to love itself. And so what I'm trying to do is prayer to get in an intense state of love, a present state of love that is not externally stimulated. So it's not because somebody talks to me or hugs me or something is happening in my life, but it's I'm making that happen now. Like I'm getting into that kind of a state. I don't know what it is. If it's good or bad, maybe I'll change it, but this is what I'm currently doing.
Let's talk about the discomfort.
Discomfortable. Yes.
So I like what you said about kind of like why you chose that word, and like, for example, why you don't go with like the universe or this or that, and how about the intimacy you feel in its presence, right? But then when you talk to other people and you share it, it kind of feels, I don't know, discomfortable, awkward. There's a thing in the back of your voice where it's like, oh, der liebe Gott, these kind of silly versions of it. Elaborate a bit on that.
I don't know. I'm not sure yet how to handle that, but this is one of those cases where I would have worried a ton about this. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that I never have discomfort, because I do, but I don't worry about, because distinctly I think this will sort itself out. It will figure itself out. Either I will find another way of expressing it, or I will find complete comfort with expressing it this way. And if it causes discomfort, it will be okay with me. I don't know how this will evolve, but the thing is this. One of my biggest challenges with this experience has been that I feel, for the second time in my life, I feel completely out of my element in communicating what I'm experiencing, right? When I came to the US for the first 2 years, I really felt like I had dumped by 100 IQ points. Everything I was saying sounded dumb to me, and it was a very uncomfortable feeling, because language is so important to me, because I always took great comfort and confidence from my way of being very expressive. And then when I came here and I wasn't speaking English well, it was a real challenge to deal with that. These last 2 weeks have been the exact same way. I try to be graceful about it, but there's a sorrow in me. If there's one sorrow, it's the sorrow that I am not able to say what I'm experiencing the way I want to, right? Sometimes I read Rumi and there's so much beauty and it's so magical the way he expresses itself. And I go, I wish I could do that. But it's so clear I can't. It's so clear. Yeah. I think it started with falling in love again so deeply and massively with literature last year and reading all these incredible works of art where I realized, wow, I'm really out of my depth when it comes to writing. But I've never felt out of my depth when it comes to speaking. Like when it comes to speaking, like I always felt that I'm at the top tip of the spear. Like I know how to express myself. I feel like I'm trying to do a write-up of Dune or Anna Karenina in like a 10-page write-up from Steli. I feel so inadequate. And what I write is not Anna Karenina. It's not Dune. It's not. I am showing it to you and I am embarrassed because I'm telling you, read this to know what I experienced reading Anna Karenina. And I go, oh my God, it's not that, but this is the best I can do. Like I can't do better right now, clearly. And if I need to do better to do my work, I trust that I'll learn. But right now, I clearly can't. That's been a challenge. And so at the beginning, like the very first thing that I wrote down after my experience of recognizing, realizing, finding God was I wrote down, I found God. And then the moment I wrote it, I thought, oh my God, what a poor way of expressing this. Right? Thankfully, I was so high and so happy that I was taking it with humor. But when I wrote these words, I had heard these words a million times by people I don't thought highly of. Still, some I don't. And not highly of in the sense that they're bad people, but that I'm like, they didn't find shit, right? Like, and it's so overused and it means nothing. And so it hurts me that was the way I was describing things. And I still, like, I found a slightly better way to see it was really not, because I pondered this and I thought, I didn't really find anybody. Like I didn't go somewhere and find somebody. I just stumbled over somebody. Like the day I stumbled over God. That's actually funny. That's not a bad way of describing it. And then I thought, because somebody asked me, my brother asked me, how did you know? Like, because he knows me and he's like, I totally believe that you were not looking for God and you were not on some spiritual path. But how did you know? Like, why couldn't it have been something else? Like, why was it clear in that moment that it was God? And it's impossible to tell. I cannot explain it. I can't say it. But it was more like one way that I try to explain it is that I had this, the intuition that told me instead of going to your room and writing down all these ideas, there's something bigger waiting for you if you sacrifice these thoughts. That feeling that came to me, that was God, but like it was just a strong intuition, more intense than many other intuitions that I have. So I followed it. And when I was on the path, as I was walking, I don't know, in a moment, all of a sudden, that voice was in me. And all of a sudden, these million whispers were all the same voice. Like all of a sudden, I heard very clearly that was all one thing. And it was God. Like it was just what I felt. I don't know why. But I cannot express a lot of the things that I'm going through really as well as I want to, or for them to be closer to what I'm experiencing, to be saying, at least I'm expressing it the way I think I'm experiencing it. And the other problem when talking about God is that it is not a not covered subject. And so anything I say has been said many, many times in one way or another, and it is very meaningless. Like I've heard all these things prior from people, and they seemed very meaningless phrases to me. And if I tell you that, I now have a personal relationship with God, it puts me, I think, in a category of people that is not people I admired before. Just the words I say. I don't know who's going through what experience in life, but I doubt that many of the people that I was critical of went through a similar experience than me, because it's not really I had a moment with God, or I have a personal relationship. All these are just words. Like anything that I say is totally meaningless. The thing that gives it meaning is in the way I act and feel. If there is a God in me and it makes a difference, is in the way I am, right? The way I live. That will express it. If I don't, God can write me personal letters every day. It doesn't mean shit. Like it doesn't mean anything. Now, lots of people are like praying to God, talking to God, having a personal relationship with God, founding God. God tells them things. God is their everything. But the way they are and they live and they act isn't shit. So it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't say anything. Maybe it helps them. Maybe they have something. I don't know what they experience. I have no idea what they really experience. Some people are for sure delusional. There's probably a whole mix between delusional and enlightened and true. And I'm definitely not totally delusional, but I'm maybe somewhere in the delusional to, I don't know what spectrum of things to be determined. But when you talk about God, I remember my Silicon Valley days where the first programmer that I met that was a cool young kid that was also into startups and everything. And then I found out that he's super religious and goes to church and believes in God. And I was like so judgmental. I still am at some point where I go, how could you be so smart and you go to church? Huh? It's not possible. Remember, Diane and I, we had a couple that was friends of ours, and they were really lovely people, but they were super into God, and it was freak us a little out. Almost like having people from Scientology over. It's like, they might be nice, but I'm a little uncomfortable with this. That sort of a thing. Now, I am not religious. I do not believe, I don't have to believe. I know there are institutions, religious institutions. They exist. I know they are great. They're big. They have power. But I do not subscribe to being a member of them. And I don't believe in their holiness or in their spirituality. I don't. So I'm not religious. I always thought of myself as a little bit, maybe lightweight spiritual, like kind of believe there's more to life than this, and there is something, and we call it God, but it's the universal source energy or something, and it's love. And I believed in these concepts, and I'd experienced some of them, but they had no structure, and I didn't have I didn't have any deep relationship, and there was no practice to it, and there was no real guiding force of it in my life, right? It was more sort of I know there's something, and that's that. Now that I say the word God, it does confuse me or put me in this bracket. I, will be baptized and I'm going to be going to church and donating all my money. And I'm like, I'm not part of some kind of a sect. I'm like, I believe in L. Ron Hubbard. Ramin, I found L. Ron Hubbard in me. That would freak you the fuck out, right? If I started saying that L. Ron Hubbard is talking through me, it will freak you the fuck out. I totally get that. I know how I would feel if I would hear myself talk. And I would not be comfortable with some of the things I'm saying. But I don't know what to do about it necessarily. Like, I'm not exactly sure what to do about this. My belief is it will figure itself out. Like, I'll find out what I have to do about it when the time is right. Right now, it's so new that I don't know, and that's fine. That's where I'm at. And the other thing is that I don't know if I'm going to speak a lot about this. At times, I'm afraid I will, because I'm like, my whole life I've been giving speeches and I can't shut up about anything. Wouldn't it be very miraculous if this is the thing that I experience that brings me a lot of value and I never speak about it? But I think, a man can dream, who knows, maybe. But it doesn't matter what I say or what I speak about. All that really matters is, how do I live my life? And I'm checking in. I have, at least in the beginning, now I'm slowly leaving the harbor and I'm okay with it. Like, I'm slowly less concerned about seeing land. I'm like, I'm on a sailing boat. Let's go. But in the beginning, I was staying close to land, right? I was trying to see land and not lose it from my sight. And what that meant for me was that I was checking in on myself like once or twice a day. And I was thinking, are there signs that I'm losing the plot, right? Are there signs that I'm becoming a pie in the sky, the world is love, and I don't have to function in real reality anymore? Am I drifting there? Am I going there? And I would look at my actions and I would go, in some ways, yes, but in most ways that are important, no. I don't feel the urge to tell everybody about this, or even anybody right now, other like the people that I really love that are very close to me. I don't feel the need to disconnect from the world. Nothing in the world now is less than me or unholy or dirty. I'm more inclusive. I've never been friendlier to strangers than now. Not some kind of creepy way where now my mission is to be friendly to everybody. I'm just comfortably smiling in the elevator. When somebody comes in, I say hi and I mean it. Where before I would not smile and I would say hi and I wouldn't mean it, right? Because I really don't want to talk to you. That's all. I'm not trying to make the world a better place any less than I did before. I'm not feeling that I'm better or more than others any more than I did before. And I'm doing the work I need to do. I'm taking care of my life. I'm taking care of the people. I'm just very fucking happy. And there's this source in my life I now have a relationship to, where before I did not I still had a relationship with God. I just did not see it, right? It was still, that friend was still sent me, chocolate and water and a note with some tips, and I would still at times not see these gifts, and times I would pick them up and use them. That God did not exist. I just had no relationship to it, right? I just didn't. I didn't feel a relationship. I didn't ever felt it. And now I do. And as far as I can tell, that's pretty fucking dope. Like, I feel pretty good. Maybe I'm losing the plot, but so far so good. There's things changing But so far, all the changes, I'm like, I think this is pretty good. But I'm sure that people that lose the plot would think the exact same thing. So, it's not a bulletproof or foolproof way, but this is life. There's really no foolproof way to know when you're dumb or when you're losing the plot. So, but I have thought about it at least. Let's say that here's something that's maybe comforting. I still am capable of human doubt. Right? So I am capable of it. It's just much more of I have to put on the hat of doubting it versus it happens naturally. Like I don't naturally doubt it. I make myself, let me try doubt it a little bit. What is this? But when it comes to this comfortableness of it, it's just that I don't know how to speak about it well. And when I speak about it unwell with people that I feel I want to share this with, even at this stage, I just go, well, no matter what, they cannot hear what I am trying to say out of my heart, but this is the best I can do, and I'll let it be what it is. And if somebody thinks, oh my God, he's losing the plot, then that's what's going on in their life. Because at the end of the day, just like you are a mirror for me, I'm a mirror for you. What you see in me has nothing to do with me. I mean, I am the mirror, but you are looking at me. And what you're going to pick up from what I just said right now is very different from what I said myself. And what I'm picking up from your facial expressions is very different from what you're really going through. We just don't know. So if somebody is uncomfortable or thinks I'm fucking stupid or crazy, I'll just have to live with it, because it's true that at all times, many times I thought I'm really cool and say really smart things, and people might have thought something different, right? Like I don't have control over that. This comes from the man that was giving speeches on stage that were recorded, and he was watching with a leather jacket, spiky hair, jumping on stage, screaming at people flocking into the area, loving, laughing, applauding. And it took me 6 years of public speaking, doing like 12, 13 keynotes a year, to at some point realize, oh, when I get on stage, people think I'm a douche. I look like a fucking asshole. I look like an arrogant, self-righteous, in love with himself, egomaniac, wannabe rock star douchebag. And I went, this is the most obvious thing you could ever observe about me. Like if you see me jump on a stage, the first minute, I now know when I look at myself, I would instantly thought, idiot, douchebag, some tech douche. But I didn't know that. I thought people from the get-go think I'm really nice and likable and probably a good person. Like I didn't know that. I had no awareness of that. So what do I really ever really know about how I'm perceived and what people think of me? People tell me nice things, but who the fuck knows, So right now, this is where I'm at, When it's awkward, it's gotta have to be awkward. I don't know how to fix that at this point.
I think it's also a very particular niche or slice of humanity, right? From whose perspective this is awkward and strange and something to be judged, right? Because there's
the humble part of this is that I was that particular group of people. And so there are people that are much more open-hearted and minded and would not care to judge people for their spiritual or religious beliefs. But I was. And so it's particularly ironic and funny when I was judging people very harshly, because there was I truly believe everything that really makes us drastically uncomfortable, there's something there that's about us. It's not really about the other person. If you honestly told me that you're into Scientology and you pray to the thetans of L. Ron Hubbard, of course, there can be a worry aspect of I worry for you because you're my friend. I don't want bad things to happen to you. And I'm for sure not there yet. But if you truly believe in the divinity of people and in their goodness and wisdom, and if you believe that this life is not it, and it's not, if you don't become rich and happy in some human way in this lifetime, then all is lost. So this is a very stressful thing that we're going through life. You have to do everything right and no mistakes, and nothing can be imperfect. If you don't believe in that model, if you believe in some kind of maybe there's many lives, maybe there's more to life than life. If I have to believe, if you were fucking Buddha and somebody was like, I am going to Scientology and believe in L. Ron Hubbard, I have to believe that Buddha would be like, cool story, bro. Have a good time. The Buddha does not resist. The Buddha would not be like, no, stay here. Let me tell you, all this is wrong. And then you go, no, but I really love it. I want to go, no, you shouldn't. The Buddha's not going to argue with you. If that's what needs to happen right now, who knows why? Who knows? The Buddha does not resist, right? No opinions, no nothing. He teaches, you sit down, you sit down. If you leave, you leave. The Buddha is not like, wait, where are you going? I'm not done with my sermon. It doesn't resist. So I have to believe that he would not be afraid of somebody going into some area that we as humans would believe is bad for them. If I would be afraid, it would be because I am in panic of the unknown. See, there was a time where I was way more afraid of Scientology than I am now. The only difference between then and now, I still don't believe it's a good organization to go into. I think it's a terrible organization to get into. But now I'm not afraid because I'm very knowledgeable in the sense that I know a tremendous amount about them. I've read a bunch of their books. I've seen a bunch of their documentaries. I studied them for a little while. And I don't say I know everything, and I don't say that there would be no danger for me to go and start doing Scientology programs that they couldn't influence me. No, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying it's not a monster under my bed. You know, it's a human organization that uses specific things to manipulate people, and they're dangerous people you shouldn't get involved with, just like the mafia or like some gangsters are, but they're not as terrifying as when I think there's some totally unknown entity that maybe if you speak a word, you'll something terrible will happen to you. Today I would be comfortable. Like I walked into a Scientology church before with Björn because he insisted on going in there. That was such a great experience in life. So beautiful and humbling. I would have never walked into a Scientology church, but our friend Björn was like, let's go in there. What can they do? Well, let's go in and figure out what this is all about. And we walk in there. And the guy starts talking to him, and he just does his magic word salad, and he just talks to Björn and talks, and I just look at Björn, and Björn is starting to sweat, but he was communicating in such a way where you could not get an out, and Björn was waiting to get an out and waiting, but he couldn't, and then eventually I just stepped in. I'm like, all right, thank you so much, we're getting going, and we left, and the moment we walked out, Björn turns around at me, looks at me, and goes, thank you. He said it with such pain, like, thank you. He literally said, thank you. Because I could tell he wanted to get out of it, but he couldn't. Okay. Right? So I've walked into a church once and survived. I'm certain I could do a second time. I could chat with a bunch of these people and all would not be lost and I would not be instantly. But I would not play with fire. I would not really seriously get into that organization because I don't think it's a good organization to get into. But if I was at Buddha level, the Buddha would look at somebody going to Scientology and would just go, have a good day. I don't know. No resistance to this. But we're not there yet. But I don't know if that's the reason, but I now wonder if part of my massive discomfort with weakness, my allergy towards anything I would put in the bucket of human weakness. I think that religion I put in there as well. I saw religion as an out for people that are weak and can't handle real world. I believe it is a way for people to submit to an organization and some boohoo entity. Like kids love the Santa Claus, but he's not real, right? But they love believing in him. So some people love believing that there's something because it makes their life have more meaning or makes them feel better, or having an authority like the church because they have some place that tells them what to do and not to do, and they don't have to take charge over their own life, or because they're delusional. A lot of people that are particularly religious that I would be exposed to, usually through media. I didn't run into hardcore religious people every day of my life, but the YouTube videos, the documentaries, the reports, the random things I would see were people that didn't seem mentally okay, right? Didn't seem mentally okay. So to me, if you were hyper into religion and God, you seemed a little weak. Right? In the best case, I thought you were naive. The worst case, I thought you were a little dumb and delusional. But I didn't think nice things of you. I'm not saying everybody, because I did meet some people that I really respected, loved, and thought they were smart. Those people were challenging my worldview. Right. I never asked a question about God to these people. These people never talked to me about God. Like, these are just people I heard from somewhere, oh, they're super into God and they go to church, and I would be like, really? Just like you hear about somebody, he's cheating on his wife. What? No. Like that sort of a thing. And I never talked to any of them about it, but these people eventually softened me up just a tiny bit to think, no, I think some people are good people and they're getting something from it. Like it gives them a good feeling, maybe it gives them a good direction, and it doesn't mean they're highly intelligent, they're very ethical, they're strong people, but maybe because they grew up with it, maybe for some other reason they need it, but it's not for me. So I did soften up a little bit, but in general, I didn't think very highly of people that were using the word God and speaking about it with a personal familiarity. That actually to me always seemed very dangerous. I was always a fan of the people that shit on religion. There's like 5, 6 intellectuals in the world that are super famous for being the atheist rock stars, basically. And they're all highly intellectual. They're incredibly, expressive and smart and whatever. And they would destroy all these like religious teachers on stage. And when they would say that, people that talk about God as if they have a personal relationship and they can speak for God, that you should be wary of them, I totally agreed and still do if you talk about anything besides yourself. Like if I started saying that I know what you should be doing, Ramin, because God told me about you, now we're in trouble. Like now we're in bullshit land. Now I'm trying to take power over other people. If I say everybody should do what I say because God speaks to me, now we're in trouble. That's bullshit to me. If I say I don't worry anymore because I believe in God, and I feel like that is terrifying to logical people. It seems so delusional, so dumb. This is not a formula for good decision making. But if you can't point to areas where I'm totally illogical and I'm totally stupid and I make bad decisions, then you're going to have to live with that. And if I make bad decisions, many people do without God. Like you don't need God to be terrible at life, right? Like with or without him, you can be shitty at this very easily. But I feel comfortable talking about my relationship with God now because I'm just experiencing it. All I'm experiencing is what I'm feeling, what I'm sensing. Now, I have to say, there's a feeling, to be honest, that this is not exclusive to me. This is very clear. There's a feeling that this is a universal force. Like I walked out of a place with shade and I see sunlight. Now, this is not my sunlight. And I feel like if everybody walked out into the same spot I stand, everybody would get the same sunlight. In that sense, it's not a hyper-individual experience and that I believe nobody else could have this. But I know that not everybody will. And I know my experience with God so far is that God isn't talking, like there's no telling you what other people should be doing. There's only what you need to do next. If that influences somebody, so be it. But it's really just about, you only know about yourself through God, and you'll get messages for what Russia should be doing or China, or like what, that's not, I don't believe that's how it works. Now, I believe that somebody could speak, that God could speak through you or use you as an instrument, which means give you an intuition or an impulse or whisper something, and then you do something that does affect a lot of people, right? Like a Rosa Parks that's like, fuck this shit, right? And just goes to the front of the bus, or a Gandhi that's like, does one little thing where he goes, this isn't right. And then it just starts off a path to him living such a drastic different life. And he didn't go to India and go, I'm going to start a revolution. It's just, so one little injustice, it stepped in and that started a chain reaction of sorts. I think that probably has happened many times before, but I don't believe in, I have to be careful because, I didn't believe in what I believe in now. Only moments ago, 3 weeks ago, I didn't believe what I believe now. So now when I say I don't believe in this, I go, let's wait and see.
In 3 weeks, it's going to be like the Church of Staley.
Yes.
You can buy bricks here.
Wouldn't that be funny? I wouldn't believe that God would speak to Gandhi, you are gonna start a revolution in India, I want you to do this, and with my leading hand you will blah blah blah. And then Gandhi's like, well, God told me to go and open this. That doesn't seem real to me, but what the fuck do I know? I don't know things. I just suspect. This is currently what I suspect. I don't have beliefs, I have suspicions. This is my current suspicion. But yeah, it's a tricky thing. It is very ironic. The irony is not lost on me that I would have just a couple of weeks ago, potentially. I mean, I think I've gotten a bit more relaxed. I think today, if a friend had come to me and spoke to me about this, I would be more like, wow, I wonder how that felt and if this is really true and what is going on. And I would be probably like, let me wait and see how this is where we're going to be in 6 months from now. But a couple of years ago, I would have been like, what the this guy is losing the fucking plot. Now it's all lost. Now he's going to be some like La La Land dude. It's not lost on me that And as I said, I was not looking for this experience. I was not thinking I would have it. It's funny though that, when this all partially started, remember that spreadsheet before I did my very first MDMA therapy 2 years ago? Alex had sent me the spreadsheet about like all areas of your life. And remember how I was joking how I hated the idea of doing a spreadsheet. I really didn't want to do it. And then when I did it, I was like, oh, this is fucking good. And it's one more example of, how oftentimes the things we don't want to do, maybe there's something in it for us. There were many areas there that I had great answers for, but there were some areas where I was weak. One area that I was weak was charity. One area that I was weak was community. I felt like, my God, I have an incredible group of friends, but I don't have a tribe of like people I share my daily life with. I don't, because I'm always on the move and all my friends are scattered around the world. So I thought, I want to change that. So that was a thought I remember having. And then there was a column about spirituality. And it asked specifically, are you spiritual or not? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, yes. And some other questions. And then it said, how do you practice? What are your spiritual practices? And I went, I don't have any. And then how do you, there were a couple of questions about spirituality. And then I remember, just like I thought on community, I want to change something about this. Spirituality, I thought, I'm a little bit of a phony. I'm a bit empty here. This is a bucket I'm very empty on. I do consider myself a spiritual person, but I have done absolutely nothing and I don't do anything and I don't know anything. And maybe at some point, I remember thinking most of my life, I worked on mental mastery, like my mind. And now I want to start working on my body and my emotions. And maybe one day I'm going to start working on my spirituality, right? Maybe one day I'm through with all these things, and eventually I go, I guess I'm 60 years old. I'll start my spiritual journey now or something. I remember thinking that. And then funny enough, the whole idea of praying before food, I didn't read about it. I'd never thought about it. It just came to me once and I thought, I want to try and see how it feel. The whole praying after yoga, I don't know, that just sort of happened. So it's funny that these things were sort of happening. I was not seeing these things as I'm on my way to spirituality or that I'm on my way to God. Not at all. And if 30 years from now, I was still praying before food once in a while and doing yoga and doing some little thank you God for my children and everybody I love, that seemed cool to me. I had no ambition. I was not going anywhere with this. I was just playing with it a little bit, I think innocently. So when I had the moment of recognition, it was both the most surprising thing ever, and because I had this instant, my whole life story was rewritten, and all these moments where I got random notes from this friend, now I knew who it was, and it was this is the most obvious thing ever. Why didn't you even, you should have and could have and kind of knew all along. This is not a big surprise. It was sort of this is the least surprising discovery a human being can make at this point, and it was the most shocking discovery, both at the same time, because I was not expecting it or looking for it or thinking about it ever or aspiring to it. If I heard people talk about it, it didn't touch me, didn't move me. So when I start my church, I'll say, I know. I wasn't when I talked to you only 3 weeks ago, Ramin, I didn't think I should build a church, but here we are. Who the hell knows? Right. But the one thing, I kind of love it. I'm kind of so grateful for it. And I'm this is fucking the dopest shit. I can't believe I'm going through this now. I can't believe this is happening to me. This is so nice. This is so awesome. Let's see. If I were you, I would think, let's check in again. Let's see where we're going to be on this in a year from now.
I think you're overestimating how discomfortable I am.
Discomfortable. Could be.
You are glowing. So it's good. And I think I also love that you are sharing it so freely, despite how it might be perceived.
No, I know I sound like a crazy. I know I don't. With you, I love you so much. Not in all things in life, obviously, but more and more, I'm really okay with showing my full self with you, right? I'm sure there's still things I'm hiding that I'm not aware of that I will discover in the future, but I'm very comfortable with you. And even with you, I was stressed before I told you because I really did not know how to do this. And but there's no other option like this. With this, even if you had a really bad reaction, I would be in awe with that. It's sort of whatever would happen, I'd just be wow, I wonder why this is happening and where it's going to lead us to. I don't this has given me a very high point. Right now, I'm very comfortable with it. I told Christy today, hey, you're going to listen to 2 recordings. We want you to... I'm if you can survive listening to these and you still want to work with me, good. If you're not, totally understandable as well. The first recording, which is the englowment one, if there's a proof that there's a God, if it's not the fucking sunshine and the ocean, then it's fucking comfortable having Chrissy listen to that recording. What I'm saying there, it's very questionable for another human to listen to me talking about enlightenment and not think I fucking lost the plot. But it doesn't matter. It's all good. In one way or another, it's all good.
I think it's a beautiful thing that's going on. So
I am so blessed to be living a life where I have so many people I can share it with. It's not a mistake, right? There's reasons why I have so many people I love and I'm so open to. And there's also a process that God has in us here. But I'm so blessed. And I hate that I'm using that word so much, but it feels so appropriate because I'm thinking, dude, I can be perceived as the craziest person ever. It doesn't matter. I don't even have a boss. I don't even have financial issues. I have so many people that love me so much that even when they think I'm crazy, they thought it many times. They're probably used to it by now. They'll go, let's see where this goes. So far it's always been okay at the end. Let's see where this goes. That's such a beautiful place. I could probably be living a very different life and then have a realization like that, then would mean a very different adventurous path of not being able to share this with anybody. And then what do you do, right? That's a more tricky thing. It's like with this, it's not like a psychedelic experience, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting. Could I have not shared it with anybody? Probably. I actually thought about it for a little bit because I thought of this is such a personally fulfilling, deep and real experience that even if nobody ever knew about it, I'd be okay. And there's not much in my life where I feel like that. It's like with my children. If nobody ever knew about my children, nobody in sense of my friends, I don't care. My children are so amazing. I don't need others. I'm basking in my children on my own. I don't need people to admire my children, know about my children. I mean, it's great when they do, but I don't need it. It's a similar experience where if God told me to not talk about this ever again, I'd be like, really? But it would be fine for me. It doesn't matter. I don't get more out of it by speaking about it. It's just funny because I think as I'm going to be speaking about it, going to be pushing me in a certain direction, but I don't need to. But I was also, with you particularly, we have the Inner Work podcast. That is sort of a vow. I have an unspoken vow that we talk 5 days a week for an hour for the Inner Work podcast. And the inner work that is happening is shared. That's sort of the vow. So when this happens, I'm like, how could I not share this? And then what would be the reason why I wouldn't share it? I'm like, well, because it's sort of a little crazy and you don't know yet how to speak of it. And maybe
it's not a good reason.
Yeah. It's all bullshit reasons. Yeah. I'm like, let's just share it. It's the Inner Work podcast. Now, I might have not called you. I know for a fact I wouldn't have called you to talk with you about that day. With many of my friends that I know I'll talk about, I haven't talked about it yet because it hasn't happened. But we had a recording, a call, an Inner Work call. And I just came from Enlightenment and I'm not going to bring it up. It's just not possible. So it was clear that I would do it. But it's also a really great blessing to have people. And I see you just like you're such a close brother. You're a beautiful mirror for me. So if you think I've lost the plot, doesn't mean I have. But it is something I'll take note of. I'll be like, all right, I'll keep an eye on this. So everything I experience, to have you as a mirror in my life, to get some reflection from the outside world, so it's not all just in my own being, is healthy and good and a blessing, and I'm grateful for it. And today, I wrote to you in the morning that I was so psyched. I was a little too psyched this morning. I had so much energy, and I was thinking, rein it in, a little less. And I did okay. I would say I would give myself a B- today on this, right? I did okay. But towards the middle of the day at 4 p.m., I slipped. My brother wrote me a message, do you have time for a call? And I just finished a long Q&A session with a bunch of startup people. I don't do these at all anymore. This is I do one a year and it's from something that I have close relationship with. But I still didn't want to do it today. And then when I did it was nice, but it was very high energy, stelly. And I finished it and I thought, no, what I really should be doing is I should do yoga and go to the gym and then chill. I have been speaking a lot today. I've been vibrating. I've been feeling I had 8 espresso shots in the morning. I need to relax a little bit, but then I couldn't help myself. So I was about to write to my brother. Now I can't do it. And then I thought, it's my brother. He probably needs me. Let's do a call. And I did one and it was great, but it was a almost 2-hour call. And when I hung up, I felt really happy. And then I thought, should I do yoga now and the gym? And then my body shut down and I was so tired. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to the gym. I started sniffing again. I'm like, okay, I can't do the gym. And I barely had the energy to do yoga or anything. And I was thinking about our call and I had no energy. And then I thought, no, we have a call. The Buddha does not resist. So today I'll get on that call. And then I thought, what should we talk about today? And then I thought, you know what? Today, we shall talk about whatever Ramin wants to talk about. I'll ask Ramin, what do you want to talk about? If he says, I don't have anything, then I'll say, I'll go to sleep. Good night. And if he says something, we will talk about what Ramin wants us to talk about. So this is how I came into this call. Yeah.
This is how we ended up here. Yeah,
this is how we ended up here.
I really think it's a beautiful thing, and I trust you. So I'm very happy about this.
It is an adventure. It is a beautiful adventure, my brother. I love you. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for your love. Thanks for listening. Let's fucking send this to Christy. I mean, we're on this train.
Okay.
Let's fucking send it. Now, this we might say don't publish immediately or something. Sarah, let her put it in the publishing calendar and we can unpublish or we can stop that afterwards. Let her get the business.
Okey-dokey.
Either she's fully in. If we can't have her fully in, then this will never work. So let's try it and see what happens.
Okay. First it goes to Justin for the processing and then.
Oh my God. Justin thought he talks to like a self-help Gary Vee. He's like, this is going to be my way to be big with Gary Vee. And I was like, oh my God, this guy lost his plot. And thinks,
Hey, Justin.
God is whispering to him, hey, Justin, we think of you. We love you. Yeah, I'm crazy. Okay. So that's it. Have a good night.